What is happening, Saturday Night Racing League? By singular demand, I'm going to put together a lap guide here for Daytona Road and a GT3 car. I'm driving the Mercedes, the AMG GT3. I figured ever since the Mustangs come out, that's all I've driven in GT3. I really love that car. But I figured in this crowd, being an American stock car crowd, it's all going to be Mustangs and Vets, and I wanted to be the other guy driving something different. The rules are generally the same here. You're not going to see a ton of variation from car to car. Your shift points will likely be different. Some of the cars are mid-engine, and so the way you're exiting corners is a little bit different. So this is unlike NASCAR, where the Toyota, Ford, and Chevy are really the same car with different bodies. These are very different cars, and so your basic mechanics, your basic lines for GT3 are all going to be identical, but your shift points, depending on which car you choose, your strengths and weaknesses as far as getting into and out of corners will be a little bit different. The way they behave on cold tires will be a little bit different. So this car, being front engine, rear wheel drive, is going to feel more like the Mustang than if you choose, say, the McLaren or the Vet, being rear engine cars, or the Lamborghini or whatever, right? They're all interesting, fun cars to drive. But the Mustang and the Mustang, the BMW, and the Mercedes will all feel pretty similar. So one thing to keep in mind is that we're all going to be coming to the let me make sure of something real fast here. Test. Yeah. Okay. One thing to keep in mind is that on cold tires, these things are pretty crap. You got to be really careful. And remember, we are going to be barreling into turn one here on cold tires. So watch this as I go around on cold tires here. You're going to notice more counter steering than I think is normal than you would expect. So I'm kind of taking it easy at the moment. But remember, when there's 20 or 30 of us going around a corner together and you want to go flat around this corner, you hit that curb, see that? It got upset really quickly and easily. So the car has downforce. There's plenty of it. But on cold tires, even with the downforce, it's lacking grip. So you gotta, kind of like you're getting off turn 4 at Charlotte, right? You gotta really be careful how you squeeze the throttle and not overcome the rear grip of the car. It's really important. Your throttle control here, especially on cold tires, is very much like driving a stock car at the limit. When you're coming off of a corner, it's all about that balance between steering angle and throttle quantity, right? How much power you're putting in. Now, you'll see in a second here sort of the three corners that I try to focus on at Daytona, and I've done probably 7 Daytona 24s. I've won 3 of them. I mean, in my split, never top split, but I've been part of the winning team for a couple of them there, and so I've got thousands of laps around this racetrack. That said, if AJ is watching this video, what up, AJ? He's going to be like, look at this slow schlup. Here's everything he's doing wrong, and that is fine. AJ has eclipsed most of us in road racing. So, cold tires. You're barreling into turn 1 here, and you want to turn left, and the car may grip up, it may slide out, right? So you need to be ginger. Do some practice. Feel how it feels on lap 10 versus lap 1. It'll feel way better on lap 10 than it does on lap 1. It's sort of opposite of NASCAR land. The tires take a lap or 2 to come up to temp. See how that counter steer just now? That's what you're watching out for. So here I'm not going to promise you super fast lap times because, number one, I'm commentating and thinking about the mechanics of what I'm doing. After I'm done with the driving portion of this, I'll flip over and we will look at an external, and I'll sort of show you what I'm aiming for more. But I want to sort of just talk you through some of the conceptual stuff on road racing in a GT3 car as they compare, trying to use familiar language to what you're doing in stock cars a lot. Driving a stock car around a road course is nothing like driving a GT3 car around a road course. You have so much more grip, so much more downforce, capability for speed, and your braking distances are probably half what they are in a stock car. So Now that my tires have started to come up to temp, let's start thinking about this next lap and talking about corner entry and what it is that I'm focused on when I'm going around. Starting here, starting with NASCAR 4, notice how I'm hugging the bottom. Just like in NASCAR, the fastest way around the track is on the bottom. Unlike NASCAR, I don't need to slide up, right? In fact, it's best to stay low because this is the defensive line and people are drafting up to you. Now, I'm braking here. There was a yellow light pole behind the fence there. I'll call it out next time around. And I'm going to keep it right there on the grass. Not touching the grass, but boy, at it. I'll show you the line externally through those two curbs there. And then end of lines, brake. I'm going to call this out in more detail, more in advance in a sec. Very slow around turn 2. What is that? Turn 3. One of these is called the International Horseshoe, and I forget what the other one's called. I'm going to call it the first hairpin and the second hairpin, something like that. Okay, dotted lines, brake. I'm going to call that out again in a minute. Slow again around this one, but it widens up more than the first one. All over that curve. All right, beginning of this access road, brake. Second gear, all over this apex. Keep it tight, keep it tight. You're going to be tempted to go wide there. All the way out to the wall. Widen that. Again, I'm going to go through this a couple more laps and we'll talk about it more clinically. All the way to the bottom. Good practice because right now anyone who's drafting you is up on your right. If you're racing multi-class, that's where the prototypes want to be, is up on the right. That's where you want them too. This is the hardest part of the track right here. Slow down central. Now, this time around, I'm going to more proactively call out my braking markers, my turn-in markers, and so on. First braking marker. I'm going to slide up the track as I approach the finish line. You'll see me getting to the top of the track at the word Daytona. And I'm looking for a yellow lighting post right before the turn-in outside the track. See it? There. Brakes, brakes, down, down. Get all the way in. Aim for those tires and just miss the tires. Now find the straight line between these. Don't put your tires off the curb. It'll bounce the car and kill ya. Here, I need to call that out a little bit earlier. We'll do it on the next lap. I'll talk about that corner on the next lap, but at the exit, you should be touching this yellow curb and then getting over to the right as soon as you can, because if you get caught left, you're probably conceding a position. Flat through here once your tires are warmed up. Brake when you see the dotted lines on the right, start. I'll call that out in advance more next time. Hug this corner, hug this corner. Yes! Now, brake at the beginning of the access road. Get all the way in. Don't follow your temptation to go wide here. Follow it here. This is where you want to be wide, right up against this wall. You're Darlington striping that wall almost. All the way down to the bottom, shortest path around the track. And then, if you're not defending, get up here immediately. If you are defending, get up here late, or don't get up here at all and compromise your entry. We're going to talk about this chicane in a lot of detail in a second. I'm going to just drive through it. You can sort of pause and look at where I'm aiming. There. Keep it tight, because if you go wide coming out of the chicane, the guy who's behind you, if he has a better run, he's going to take that inside from you. So you want to stay low so that if he has a run, he has to take it around the outside. He has to go the long way around, and that's less desirable, because if you're a 3 or a 4 car group, at that point, right, everyone's going to stay with you down low, so you'll have the draft. Brake at the light. Down, 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 down. Careful on your downshifts. Aim for the tires. Go down. Find the straight line in between these two and maximize without overlapping the curves. Look for the dotted lines. Brake at the end of the dotted lines. Get all up on this curb, tight as possible. Get on this curb on exit. That wasn't amazing. That turn wasn't amazing. Use this curb, but not into the grass. Look for the dotted lines. Brake. Oh, I overshot. Haha, we'll edit that out in post. Maybe. Easy to outbrake yourself going into these corners, especially if you're defending or attacking. That corner is where so many accidents happen because of that simple mistake I just made. All right, let's talk about this chicane a little bit. So remember, you've gone up to this wall. You've come down here to defend. you're thinking about your braking marker here. There's a 3-2-1 board going into this corner. I want you to look for the marker. There's a yellow pole outside of here between 1, boom, boom, boom. Between 2 and 1, there's another yellow pole, kind of like at turn 1, that I'm using as my braking marker. And then I'm going to talk about the mechanics of where to aim and where to be careful going through there this next lap. And then, of course, again, we'll do an external talk through as well. Keeping it low here. Not washing up. I've got plenty of downforce. It's not hurting my tires to stay low. I'm looking for that light pole at the top. And down, 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 down. Spot the tires. Missed the tires. Little bit of grass. That's good. Notice how I got a little bit of green there. End of the dash lines. Brakes. Down, down. Second gear corner. Get on that curb a little bit. A little bit of trail braking helps there. Not a ton. You don't want to overdo it, but a little bit of trail braking helps there. A little bit of curb there. A lot of curb here. Maybe some curb on the exit, but I don't like to. This is a hard corner. Hardest corner on the track right here, in my opinion, to get the line right. I always am a little bit too wide or a little bit too shallow. It's just one of those corners really difficult to be consistent at. Okay, notice how I go like 10%, 25%, then 100% throttle. I'm really being careful coming out of that corner on the throttle. That corner is where a lot of people lock up their rear brakes and spin on entry, and a lot of people over rotate on exit and lose it. Okay, light pole after 2, brakes. Aiming for left on the white. Ooh, boy, it's hard to talk about and do at the same time, but effectively, there's yellow curbing and white curbing at each of those apexes. You want your outside tires on the yellow, inside tires on the white for each of those corners. Now, you got to be careful. Again, that's slow down central. You don't want to have so much of it that you're getting slow down. So you'll need to over experiment going into tonight, over attack those corners and find where that line is, because this is where people lose positions, and races at Daytona is under pressure at the bus stop. Notice that throttle control. Being careful about the throttle. If you're over rotating there too much in your setup, dial a little more rear wing in and front wing in, or front downforce in. What you're not going to see here is a blistering lap, guys. I didn't set this session super cool. I have no idea what the race conditions are for tonight's race. I just know what track it is. So I've got it set pretty hot, I think, like 45 Celsius or something. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how this is going to compare time-wise to what we're doing tonight. A lot of the fast guys at this racetrack, without draft, are running 43s. I've done a 46.1, but I haven't been like race pacing. I've just been thinking about mechanics here. Brakes, straddle the white and yellow, down to third, straddle the white and yellow, straddle, straddle. Little bit of straddling. Each of those curbs, though, is sort of a different ratio of yellow to white. So again, you'll have to feel it out. But the point is to concentrate on straddling and maximizing those without overcommitting them. So I'm going to slow down here on this one, and I'm going to talk about the braking markers that I'm using more specifically. Okay, so you see this guy right here. Ooh, I overshot it. All right. Right here off my sort of up to the right, you see that, I think it's a caution light, right? The yellow sort of mailbox looking thing up there. That's your braking marker from the outside going into turn 1. If you're defending low, like if I'm coming down here at max speed because I've got some guy up to my right, then it's a bit different. I can brake pretty late, but I've got to brake a little bit before it, right? He's going to brake late, having to go around the outside. The defensive line is in straight, right? I'm aiming sort of for these, just outside of these cones. I'm coming in straight, and then I want to be hugging this white line as much as possible, because this guy who's out here wants to get down to this white line. And if I force him out there, that's where the marbles are. That's where it's a little bit off camber. You know, it's hard to pass a guy around the outside if he's effectively guarded the inside. However, if you over brake on the defensive line, if you over brake coming into here and you're just going too slow around here, or if you under brake coming into the here, you'll wash up because the line is so much more shallow. So be careful when you're defending turn one. It's easy to mess it up both ways. So practice that. Practice offline braking there. Now here, there's a straight line. That straight line, if you look at the curb on the right and the upcoming curb on the left, I notice how much fall off. There's probably 6 inches of fall off at that curb. You do not want to put your right side tires or later your left side tires over that curb. You want to put them on that edge, right? Ideally, let's see if I can hit it right here. Ideally, that might have been a hair too far. I'm not sure. It's weird at low speeds. But hopefully when I pause this later, what I'm seeing is that at the fall off of the curb, my tire is overlapping that ridge, right, that ledge. That's what I want. Same thing here. I'm going to put my left tires on but not over. Now, I want to get over to the left here, unless I'm defending. I want to get over to the left here. You see the dashed lines that sort of demark pit exit. I'm looking for the end of these dashed lines, and as soon as I get to that last line, boom, that's when I'm on the brakes. At this point, I'm in 4th gear, and I want to get down to 2nd so that when I turn in, I'm meeting this curb like right at its beginning, and then I'm holding that curb, holding that curb, holding that curb. I start seeing the Ferris wheel and the carnival rides. When I start seeing the carnival rides, that's when I want to start opening the wheel up and accelerating. Again, egg under the throttle. Notice this other piece of curbing here that's sort of in the middle of the track. You want to be careful about this. You kind of want to be to the right of it, barely touching it on exit, and then relying on the other curb you see off in the distance here for your actual exit. If you get too much onto this one too early, notice you can see the elevation change there. If I hit it here, the car falls off a cliff. Look how it's leaning. The car falls off a cliff. And so if you're doing that at 90, 100 kph, that's going to upset your car and make this corner way harder. And then the guy behind you who took a tighter line coming out of there is now on your right with the preferred line into here. It's difficult to defend. This is the defensive line here, right? Really difficult to defend here because you want to be wide open coming out of this next corner, and then the one following that is a right-hander. So you want to be on the attack mode for that one, right? You want to be going as fast as you can be. But if you're here, this corner just became twice as sharp. You've got to lift. The guy on the outside is going to take that position, or you're going to crash each other. If you try to defend down here, you're likely, if you don't really breathe it a lot, you're likely to wash up into him and push him off into the grass. Now, you might like that, right? But that's, it's like running someone into the wall. Pardon me. Hit this curb, full speed. You'll wash out here. Use this curb if you need it. You don't. If you hit that corner right, you've got enough downforce. You probably don't need it. Now that's going to have you exiting, coming into this right-hander on the right, and that can be okay. There's a couple different lines that you can take into here. But imagine you're coming off here at a high rate of speed. The thing that I'm spotting are these dotted lines, right? Kind of like going into the first horseshoe. For this one, I'm looking at these dotted lines, and around the middle of them, I'm on the brakes. I'm going from 5th or 4th, depending on your car, down to 2nd for this. And this is a long-ass corner. So I'm washing out wide a little bit here, but I've got to be careful not to go too wide. This is a graded road, like a typical residential street. It's graded. So if I am too far to the left, I'm on an off-camber position, and I've got to be very careful about grip. It's so easy to just fall off into the grass like you saw me do a couple laps ago, to just fall off. People do that all the time. This wall collects more cars in a 24-hour Daytona race than any other wall, real life and iRacing. This wall is the devil, and collects people. And by the way, this one back here, this kink, another really common thing. I was racing against one time. I remember Parker Kligerman in GT3s here, and he comes off. He hits the corner right. He hits the kink here. He's all full throttle in a McLaren, goes through here, and I'm right behind him, and he gets here, but he's overcooked it a little bit, and he's on the wheel, and the rear of the car just slides out. If you're on kind of a low downforce setup, that corner's sharper than you think it is. So be cognizant. This is a place where you might be countersteering at high rates of speed. So be careful about that corner. Don't overcook it. Make sure your arc is good to get through there. So coming into this corner, you're mid-track somewhere, right? And you've got to make a choice. Am I doing a late apex because I'm too far left, or am I doing a slower, tighter delivery and a longer track out because I'm too far to the right? I have a tendency to be a bit of a late apex guy, but they're both correct answers. So I'm going to go like this and start about the time, you can see that, I think those are speakers up there to my left on that pole. When that's sort of just off to my left, that's when I'm starting to turn in, and I'm spotting for this corner here, right, for the curbing. And just like that first hairpin, I want to be on the curbing. When it smooths out, you can see how the ridges become a lot less pronounced here, right? See how it smooths out? When you feel it start to smooth out, that's your cue to start accelerating. And now I can see the exit curbing up there, a little bit of yellow, right? I can see that exit curbing. That's what I'm thinking about. But I'm not thinking about the beginning of that exit curbing. I'm thinking about it about halfway down. So I'm now starting to feel the rear of the car, slip out. I'm countersteering a little bit, and I'm out about here on exit. It is okay to get your left wheels off on there. If you hold it too tight, the rear end might snap on you. That's a pretty common characteristic here, is you'll see cars coming out of this horseshoe and the rear end snaps out. And it does that because they're tightening this radius up too much so as not to get an off track, right? If you're coming off this corner like here, you're way too tight and you're going to be fighting the car to retain rear grip. You want to be entering this thing about here-ish and stabilizing the car on the curbing. And then once you've got that, get over to the right, and look for this brake. Where this access road begins, that's where your braking begins. In pretty much every car, really. There are some cars like the Audi 90 GTO or stock cars where you're probably braking about here. Lotus 49 comes to mind, where you're probably braking here. But in just about any modern car, prototype or GT, here's your braking point, right when this access road begins. When it feels like I could turn right or left, this is your braking marker. Now, one of the trickiest corners on the track, I would say there's 3 corners that really, really matter on this track. That one that we just went through is one of them. This one's another. I want to take this corner about like this. I want my left wheels in the dirt, my right wheels on the concrete. And I want to hold a little bit of trail braking around here, and I'm starting to work with my throttle. And I want to be about here heading onto the oval. Your natural temptation, if you're a beginner road racer at Daytona Road, your natural temptation is going to be to immediately widen out the corner, right? You're going to want to, I've got all this space out here. I'm going to go out here. Guys, there's no grip out here. This may as well be sand. There's no grip out here. You'll lose the rear end of the car a little bit. This is another place where people spin all the time. You want your right wheels either on or to the left of that rumble strip, because if you're way out here, you got no grip. There's, notice the tire marks that will build throughout the race. The fast guys are going to be about here, midway, maybe a hair further, and what they're spotting is sort of this area that I'm pointing at here. You don't want to hold in really tight to the cones. You want to be a little bit to the right of that, because your goal here is to get on the power, aiming at the fence. This is when the this is when things are loading up, right? So your downforce is starting to work for you here. Everything's loading up, and I'm looking at that Sunoco sign up there, and that's sort of where I want to be as I'm coming out of this corner. I want to be right up to the fence. Sunoco sign, Daytona sign. Right here, you should be against the fence, right? But then at this point, all your downforce is activated. It's time to start thinking about the bus stop. So I'm getting down low, working my way up through the gears. Okay, so you got a car directly behind you, right? You got roughly equal runs coming out of the turn there. If you wash up now, which is the ideal thing to do, if you wash up now, you're exposing yourself to be dive bombed at the bus stop. And that's okay, because you might be able to time it to where he's going to be compromised going in. You might be able to compromise it so that you get a better exit, right? And then you've got this really long, effectively a straightaway, getting back to the start-finish line where you can pass them again. In fact, if you ever watch any real life or even sim racing around here, you'll notice that on the last lap, you want to be in second place, not first, within drafting distance, because that's how these races are won, is by passing on the last lap. But do note that for whatever reason in iRacing, there's just very little slipstream on the GT3 cars, so you will struggle a little bit to pass people in the draft unless there's 2 or 3 cars acting. I'm sorry, 2 or 3 more cars acting, right? A 2-car group, not a lot of slipstream. A 3 or 4-car group, a good deal. Okay, so if I want to defend, I'm going to stay left, right? I'm going to stay way left. I'm going to give the guy behind me no option but to go to my right, because I want to defend coming in. If I don't want to defend at this point and I want to take him back on the other straight, then I'm getting all the way up to the fence. If I'm alone, I'm getting all the way up to the fence. You're spotting 2 things here. Number 1, 3, 2, 1, right? You're looking at the boards. Number 2, the yellow arrow, right? Those are your cues that you're coming up on this thing. And your turn-in point and your braking point is effectively almost the same thing. This, just like at the turn 1, I've got that that sort of mailbox-looking caution light up there before the 1 sign, sort of halfway between 1 and 2. That's my braking marker. Oops, that's my braking marker. So at this point, I'm all the way up on my gears. I've got to get down to 3rd, but not immediately. This is a 2-shift corner, if you will. So all the way up in probably 6th at this point, and now I'm down 2 gears, right? I want to get down 2 gears, and I'll kind of show you the line that I'm trying to spot here. About there. It's kind of weird at low rates of speed, but about there is what I'm looking for, right? I want to draw a straight line from the middle of this yellow to the middle of that yellow. That's what I'm aiming for. But I'm going to want to over-rotate just a tad. This is my turn-in, right? This is where I want to hit this curve. I want to continue a little bit left, because the most important part of this isn't this corner, and it isn't that corner. It's that corner. It's number 4 of these 4, right? I want to be exiting 3, the 3rd of these, so that I'm maximizing the 4th of these. So what that means is I'm coming through here, and I'm looking at this one. My job isn't to maximize this corner. I want to come a little bit left of it and then cut back in. So I'm still getting into the white, but I'm getting into the white a little bit later, right? When we look at this back at full speed, if I can get a good lap in, stop sucking and get a good lap in, you'll see that I'm sort of sweeping through this corner with a later apex, so that what I'm setting up, and I'm never going more than about halfway here. This is another place where people lose the rear end of the car, because on entrance, they're missing the first turn. They're braking too late, or they're carrying too much speed, and they're missing the first turn and trying to overcompensate setting up for the second turn and the third turn. So you want to be at a point where if you're too far to the left, you never want to touch that curbing on the left here. If you're too far to the left, you've overcooked it. Next time, brake a little more, or turn in a little more aggressively, depending on the variables there. Here, I want to be turning back and all over this yellow curb. Again, find your limit. There are slowdowns here. This corner and this coming corner are both slowdown central. But what I'm looking at here, boom, straight shot out. The Sunoco sign and that cone should be roughly lined up. So I'm coming through here. And the rear of the car is super light at this point. but I'm coming through like this, and I'm looking for this exit. I want my left tires to touch that grass. No more. Just touch. Just a little kiss. And so notice how the angle I'm hitting this corner at is not the angle of the white and yellow curbing. I'm going to touch all three colors, green, white, and yellow. But I'm not following that angle. It's too sharp an angle. If you find yourself like this, that means you overcooked the turn 1, 2 area, and you're way too wide going through 3 and 4. And you have just given up 4 or 5 tenths to the dude behind you. So you want to be exiting this corner about like this. Let's take a look here. Yeah. You want to be exiting this corner about like this. Yeah. And then unlike when you're re-entering the oval back there, you do not need to sweep out to this Sunoco sign. You're going to want to get all the way down here. Reason being is because if he got a better run than you right there, you want to punish him by protecting the low line. You want to defend yourself by protecting the low line. You want to send him around the wide side. Now, you might get freight trained up there if people decide to, bypass you if you've been holding up traffic. But a lot of times the traffic will stay with you because you're on the shorter path around. So I'm going to speed up here. With all that in mind, let's try to see if Ben can lay down a reasonable lap. Down, down, down. I want to be in second gear. Aim for the tires. Like, whoa, overcooked it. I wasn't in rhythm there because I wasn't coming in at full speed. All right, on the curb, not over. Look for the dashes. Brake. Down to second. Delayed entry. Careful entry. Slightly over 90 degrees on the wheel. Aim for the second exit. Look for this yellow. Be ready for your turn in and turn. Flat. I'm on cold tires now. Notice how I'm a little bit left of center. Aiming for midway down here. And brake at the access road. Still warming the tires back up after all that. We'll see if we can put one good lap down here and then call it a day, and we'll jump out to the external and watch through a little bit. Hope this is helpful. Dabs of brake. When you turn back to the right there, little dabs of brake help settle the car, because that's on the whole lap. That's where the rear end is lightest. That and the kink. Those two places are where the rear end is lightest. You do not want to be dabbing the brake in the kink. It's too fast. That's a little bit slower than the kink, I think. I'd have to go back and look at speeds, but it feels slower than the kink. Let's try one more lap here, and then we'll jump outside the car. Woo! She got lively. Throttle control is everything. Notice all that counter steering that I'm doing as I get back on the throttle. There's just a delicate balance in these cars. Less so in the rear engine cars or mid-engine cars. Less so in those. But the front wheel drive cars, you just got to be delicate on the throttle. There's an inherent advantage to mid-engine cars. They're just less fun, a little more sanitized for my taste. Whew, no slow down. That one was kind of close, I think. Not sure how I lost a bunch of time there, but whatever. I wonder if that's because it's counting against my all-time best lap. Anyway, let's jump outside of the car and kind of look at a couple of things. We'll find my fastest lap, and this has not been by any means some sort of record-setting session. Obviously, I've been jibber-jabbering a lot, not focused. Okay, so the best one I've done in this session is a 46.1. So let's go outside the car here, change our camera angle to be a little more useful, and sort of talk through where we're pointing. Okay, notice where I'm at here. See that yellow pylon right there, right? That's what we're looking for. Boom, right at it. All right, remember we talked about the defensive line where I'm straight braking here. Instead of taking this wide arc like I'm doing here in ideal conditions, if I'm side by side, I want to be stealing this inside here so that when he finishes his arc to get to turn 2 or turn 1.1 or whatever this is, I'm there. I want my car there. So I want to get to the white line from the inside. This guy doesn't want to get to the white line. He's coming around because he's not thinking about the kink here. He's thinking about this apex. He's looking at those tires right there, right? So my job is to get, that's a little bit wide actually. You want your left tires. The difference between a 46 and a 45.5 is right here. Getting your left wheels sort of on that line, maybe even touching the grass a little bit. But you got to be careful because once you get back to the throttle, you're going to feel the rear end start to break loose. So back on the throttle, I'm looking at this exit curb, but I'm not necessarily wanting to get on it, right? Because I've got this kink. The thing that I'm thinking about here isn't sort of the exit of this corner, it's the exit of this corner, right? I want to be lined up to be able to take this curb correctly. You're always thinking, it's like chess, you're always thinking a couple moves ahead. Okay, this isn't bad. You'll notice here how left-right suspension, nope, I'm sorry. What am I looking at here? Left front suspension? Isn't there a... What the heck, you guys? Come on. Okay, this is close to what I was talking about. You can see how my tires are right at the cliff, right? This is a 6-inch drop off. You don't want to put your tires over there. These cars ride really low. And so you'll bottom it out and it'll bounce on you, right? And when it hits the next bit of curbing up there at the exit, it's going to bounce back up again. So you're, and that'll upset the car. Crashes are caused here every race because of that very thing. So do take care there. You want to be on the curb, at the edge of the curb, not over the curb. Here, a little bit less so. Remember, your goal here is to get back to the left. If you get too far into this curb, you are completely hosing yourself and finding yourself bouncing way out over here. And if you're defending, this guy that's behind you, he's wanting to get to the outside. Again, crashes are caused here. So here I'm going to take a non-defensive line, but let's talk about the defensive line real fast. If I've got a guy right on my tail coming out of that corner, I want to force him around the long side here, right? There's a whole defensive line you can take through the entire infield. So I'm going to stay here and make him go there. If you're looking to overtake, same thing. You're going to want to be on the right. This corner, if you force them off the apex, it's off camber. This is another wall that collects folks, but this is an off camber corner. So if you can force the other guy to miss the center of the apex, really, really hard for him to gain ground on you on corner exit. But since I'm alone, I'm braking right about the end of those white lines, right? Dash lines and brakes, right? So here I'm going to come in and can I move that out of the way? Yeah, cool. Come on, give me the click point. Give me the click point. There it goes. So you'll notice here I'm entering a little bit. This is not a great lap actually. So again, there's probably a quarter second missing right here. I should be tighter right here. I should be entering right about there, right? Just barely after the curbing begins. And and then getting my butt up on the curbing. I bet you some of my other laps I did this corner better. And then here on corner exit, remember there's two exits. This one's false. I don't want to be here ever, 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 ever. Right? I don't want to be there. That is just this cliff you fall off of. There's also no grip out here. There's marbles out here. It sucks out there. So don't be there. Be here. Look for this corner. You should not need to use very much of this curbing, but if you're a little off kilter, feel free to. It's no problem. It's not a grip problem. It's just a matter of not the fastest line. Here I'm spotting this curbing here on the right. That's my cue that I'm about to need to turn in. But with all the downforce these cars have, I'm not turning in yet, and I'm not braking either. You'll notice no brake lights here on this curbing, but not abusing it. So if you find yourself over here, then kind of like that turn 1, 2, 3 area, you are going to bounce the car and come out and kill somebody on your outside out here, or end up in the grass yourself, or unload the rear and over rotate like old Parker Kligerman did. Here, like I said, you probably don't need to use this curbing. You might. Depends on how well you hit the kink. It's no problem. Use the curbing if you need, but you need to be thinking about these dashed lines and being ready to slow down and decide whether you're defending inside or whether you are late apexing outside, right? They're both good answers. And it depends on the competitive situation. If you have a dude right behind you, you want to take the shallow line and really control the apex. If you're alone or if you're trying to attack, you probably want to take the outside line with a later apex. That's, it's just a matter of competition. Again, here, late apex, you'll notice how I did that. I should be on this curbing a bit. I didn't get there. So it's funny that this is my fastest lap in this session, but still a crap lap. So here I'm just barely getting to the white line, but notice how my brake lights kind of come on and off here, right? 3 times, I think. On, off, rotate, need a little more rotation, then back to the throttle. Dab the brake, just little dabs of brake. If you're going 100% brake at any time, you're doing it wrong. These cars do not ever require 100% brake. They want to be, modulated quite a lot. Okay, now let's talk about this exit. See how I straightened that out? I didn't get so far off, and watch my steering wheel down in the bottom left there. You notice how it's little counter, right? The rear end should be slipping there a little bit. You want to have a little bit of a slip angle there. So coming into here, 300, 200, 100 basically intersects with the access road. Right wheels on the curbing. I'm turning in. I want to get my left wheels just into the dirt. Let's see if I get there. I'm a little bit wide every corner of this lap, but I want to be a little bit in that dirt. Not a ton, a little bit. Notice here how I'm not out to that curbing. We talked about the lack of grip out there. And here I'm already straightening it up. Look at my wheel. Already straightened up. I'm counting on the downforce to get me up to speed and providing minimal wheel input, aiming at that Daytona and Sunoco sign area to be up here by the wall. Okay? Low line, and then 3, 2. Notice the yellow pylon. Let's speed that up just a tad. There we go, 1/8 I think is good. All right, we talked about. Notice how I'm already off the brake here. Interesting, right? All the braking happened back there, but now I'm on the brake again. I've just gone from 4th to 3rd, and I'm arcing this turn in preparation for this turn. That's what I'm thinking about. A little bit more brake again, right? Rotate the car, thinking about the 4th exit, the 3rd entrance and the 4th exit. Again, this isn't a great lap. I might try to do one more, but notice how I'm not parallel to the angle of the lines there, right? God damn it, I am. I'm not here, but I think I'm overcompensating here maybe a little bit for a slowdown that I'm trying to not get. This was only my 2nd lap, so I wasn't even warmed up yet. And I'm off, right? And then back around for the same turn 1 entrance. In fact, we'll just look at it again real fast. brakes. Down, 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 down. All right. And ladies and gentlemen, that is how I do a lap at mediocre pace with a lot of commentary around Daytona Road Course in a front-engine rear-wheel drive GT3 car. If you're driving the Beamer, if you're driving the Mustang, any other car of that format that I might not be remembering right now, that is the deal. I would say that the only difference that you might expect if you're driving one of the mid-engine cars is that you will likely you'll likely have different shifting points, right? The cars will sound different. A lot of they'll sound different, right? You'll need to figure out your shifting points because you don't always rev them all the way up like you do a stock car. Sometimes they shift at lower RPMs than you think is natural. And then also on corner exit, the way that I'm modulating my throttle and the way that I'm counter steering will be different in a rear engine car because you're going to have more grip on acceleration than I do. However, I'm going to have more grip on braking than you do. I've got all that weight hitting the front of the car, slowing me down. And also here, I've got a more playful rear end because I don't have all that weight back there. So I can use trail braking and counter steering a little differently than you are to get around there. So I hope this has been helpful. I look forward to a fun race tonight. Thank you guys for hanging out.